Hello, gardening friends. Today is Monday, January 23rd, 2023. It's chilly outside, so I thought I would start in the front porch. My paper whites that I planted a couple of weeks ago are in bloom, and I don't believe this one is the same as the others. It's got a yellow cup, and it was a bigger bulb to begin with. I have one more batch of paper whites to plant yet, and I'll probably do that later today. But everything is still doing pretty well here. It's a beautifully sunny day, probably the last of the sunny days that we're going to have for a while. This is the second bloom on this particular amaryllis. I have two others that are sprouting out in my garage, and I'll be bringing them out front here as soon as this one is done. And I will go ahead and plant this bulb out front after it's done blooming. Everything looks lush and green today because of the rains that we've had. You can see the winter rye has caught, both in front yard and back. So I can't wait for that to get a little bit taller. I'm going to stay off of it in the meantime as much as I can. Here's some paper whites blooming in the front. Spring is definitely here. Paper whites are up. You can see hyacinths coming up. These are hyacinths that were planted last year. And my dianthus are coming. I've been calling those mini carnations, and I've decided that I would start putting tags down. There are three plants that I have a very hard time remembering the names of, and it just so happens all three of them are in the front yard. Dianthus was one of them. Here you can see this row of daffodils. That is where that garden used to end, and it was an edging of daffodils that I had. Here's the other side. Lantana is the other one that gives me a hard time. I don't know if that lantana is going to make it. Only time will tell. Oh, I see a stick from my crepe myrtles. Have to remove it. We pollarded this particular crepe myrtle last Thursday. Crepe myrtles are a very pretty tree, but I do not recommend planting them over a parking pad. I speak from experience. The problem with crepe myrtles is they shed their flowers and they spit. They physically on hot days will drip water out of their leaves and or flowers. I don't know for sure which one. And what happens is that will coat your car in like a sticky substance. And what's even worse is when the flowers fall, which they do constantly, they will actually plaster themselves to the surface of your car. And unless you get them every day with a blower to blow them off, you're going to wind up scraping them off with a sponge. So I don't recommend planting crepe myrtles over a parking pad. Boy, these Nandina fruits are just absolutely beautiful, very colorful. Again, they are poisonous to some birds. The birds here seem to know that and don't touch them. The main thing I did want to show you today was yet one more camellia. I counted, I've got 15 different types of camellias, and we've gone through 2/3 of them so far. This is the unnamed variety. It's not the prettiest because of frost, but this is what the flower looks like. It is a pink, and if you notice, it has sawtooth edges. It should not have the brown there. The brown was due to the buds getting frostbite. That's the problem with this particular camellia. It blooms this time of the year, and it's a little late, and the buds are prone to getting frostbite, as you can see on the top of the bush. But it is a pretty flower, and every now and then we get a slightly warmer year and the flowers aren't frostbite, but they're still pretty to look at. So we are 2/3 of the way through my camellias. I did document each one as it was blooming, so you can go back through other installments. My Professor Sargent, I really, really like. This is my favorite of all camellias. That bush was much taller, but when my oak trees fell in the backyard, they had to get at them, so they drove heavy equipment through here and shattered that particular camellia. One thing good about camellias, if you inherit an old home with camellias, you can cut them to the ground and they will resprout. It doesn't take terribly long for them to resprout, but they will come back again. So you don't necessarily have to yank a camellia out. Just cut it down to whatever size you want and it will come back. There's my knockout azalea, encore azalea, I'm sorry, knockout's roses. Autumn carnation. Hyacinths are still blooming here. Again, these were the hyacinths I bought last year and planted. I'm really shocked that they came back as nicely as they did. Normally when they come back smaller. And here you can see I even double planted these next to each other and they're still coming, so they like this particular spot. I don't think, it's a sad, sad day, but it looks like the buds on my high fragrance camellia did not make it through the frost. So this will be a year of no high fragrance. It is a double pink blossom. Well, I see one on the ground. Ooh, there's still one over here. But I see there's one that fell to the ground. Oh, it's a shame. It looks pitiful. However, when you smell it, it smells of hyacinth. So you have to ignore the brown patches. There'll be one more flower coming this year. It was protected by the loquat, so when that opens, I'll make sure I come out and get a picture of it. This is a needle palm that was a seedling from me. It was in the backyard, and I think this is about the 4th or 5th spot that I've planted it. It seems to be remarkably resilient. It does like a shady location. The birds have really been attacking the bird feeder this morning. I've got to put more seed in it. The squirrels had knocked the bird feeder over. They actually unscrewed the top from jumping on it and it flew all over the ground, so didn't bother some of the birds because they like to pick off the ground anyway. Someone had commented on my monkey grass, and it is not necessarily a nuisance. It is something that you have to keep after. This monkey grass was basically a single row of monkey grass that I planted, I want to say 6 years ago. This here is lily turf. This is liriope. Both of these I found on my property. The lily turf doesn't spread as rapidly as the monkey grass. But here's an example of what you need to do. Here you can see the monkey grass is coming out of where it's supposed to be, and you basically have to pull it out, and you want to throw it out because if you throw it on your compost pile it will grow. But that's what the roots of the monkey grass look like. And basically you can take these and plant. They're kind of fussy because you have to get the roots lined up just right, but I mean you can replant this as a group in a line, and in probably 2 or 3 years it'll be about double that thickness. So it's Very easy to pull up. I'm going to just leave it there for now. But you can see it does get a little sloppy. So what I do is when it starts getting a little too thick for me, I'll get down on my hands and knees and just pull it out. It's not a, the roots don't go deep. They're very shallow roots. But again, don't throw it in a compost pile because it'll grow around the edges. I can see daffodils are fixing to bloom over here. There's some of the ones that naturalized from the backyard and I moved them to the front. So that's about it for the day. The only other thing I wanted to show, other than something's been jumping in my boxwoods, probably a squirrel, is my banana trees. Here you can see I cut it, but it is coming back. This other one may or may not come back from the stalk. If it doesn't grow from there, what'll happen is the stalk will rot and it'll send out another shoot from the base. But in this particular case, this one is more than likely going to come back from the existing stalk. And I guess that's about it for today. I'm just tickled to see all of this sprouting grass, and the rains that are going to come all this week will only make it grow better. Here you can see it as I can blow some of these leaves off to free up some space, but the grass is definitely catching. So, oh, I didn't show you for a while along the front here. I do have, let me get outside and I can take a better picture. Snapdragons or antirrhinums. Remember, I planted them in the fall. And then after they bloomed, I cut them back. And so they're doing pretty well. I have to put a stick near those last three because they get tangled up in extension cords for weed whacking. Didn't hurt them, but it kind of stunted them a little bit. These are all a red color. And I guess that's about it for today. I'll leave you with a picture of my front yard. Have a good day.